I don't know why I'm writing this down. Maybe I just need to get it out. Maybe I'm hoping someone else saw what I saw and I'm not crazy. I don't know. The official reports are all a joke. They talk about unprecedented seismic activity and mass tectonic shifts. It's a lie. Or not a lie, but it's not the whole truth. It's not what I saw. It's not what I heard. What happened in the North Carolina mountains, it wasn't an earthquake. It was something else. My name is Jake, or it was. I don't use it much anymore. Back then, 2 years ago, I was working for a geological survey group. It was a dream job for a guy like me who didn't like being around people. Our station was perched way up on a ridge deep in the Pisgah National Forest. It wasn't one of those big fancy observatories. It was just a small, reinforced concrete building crammed with seismometers, computers, and shortwave radio equipment. Our job was simple: monitor the rock. The Appalachian Mountains are old, but they're not dead. They shift, they groan, and our job was to listen to it all and send the data back to the main office in Charlotte. Most of the time, it was just me and one other guy, Ben. Ben was the veteran. He'd been working that station for 15 years. He was in his late 50s, grizzled, beard down to his chest, and drank coffee so thick you could stand a spoon in it. He'd seen everything, or so he claimed. Nothing fazed him. Me, I was just a 24-year-old tech guy, there to make sure the computers didn't crash and to run the diagnostics. The isolation was the main thing. We'd do a 2-week shift, just me and him. Then we'd get a week off. It was a 40-minute drive on a paved road to the nearest town, and then another 30 minutes up a gravel fire road just to get to our station. You didn't see anyone, you didn't hear anyone, just the wind in the pines and the constant, quiet hum of the electronics. It was peaceful. I really, truly loved it up there. The views were insane. On a clear day, you could see the whole range, just endless waves of blue and green ridges fading into the sky. At night, the stars were so bright they almost looked fake. I always felt safe there. I mean, what's going to get you? A black bear? They were more scared of us than we were of them. The woods felt old, but they felt quiet. That's the part that gets me the most, looking back, how quiet it was, right before it all went to hell. The whole thing started on a Tuesday. It was early October. The leaves were just starting to turn, all red and gold, and the air had that perfect cold snap to it. I was running my morning diagnostics, just checking the feeds from the remote sensors. We had maybe a dozen of them scattered across the surrounding peaks, drilled right into the bedrock. That's when I saw the first weird thing. Sensor 04, the one furthest north on Black Balsam Knob, was offline. That wasn't super weird on its own. A bear could have messed with the solar panel, or a cable could have gotten chewed through by a fox. "Hey Ben," I called out. He was in the small kitchenette area, predictably making another pot of tar black coffee. "Sensor 4 is down," he grunted. "Reboot the link." "Already did. It's not responding. Looks like the unit is completely dead." He came over, wiping his hands on his jeans, and stared at the screen. He squinted at the data log from the moments before it cut out. "Huh," he said. "It wasn't a normal failure. The log showed a massive spike, a tremor so localized and so violent that it just didn't make sense. It wasn't an earthquake because none of the other sensors, not even sensor 05, which was only a mile away, had picked up anything. It was like something had hit that one specific spot with the force of a bomb." "That's weird, right?" I said. Ben just shrugged. "Glitch in the sensor, probably fried itself. Add it to the maintenance list. We'll hike out there next week." I didn't like that answer. It felt off. But he was the boss, so I logged it and tried to forget about it. The rest of the day was normal, quiet, uneventful. That night, though, I had a hard time sleeping. Our bunks were in a small room in the back of the station. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind. Around 2 a.m. I heard it. It was a sound, but it was also a feeling. It was a low, deep thrumming. It was so low I felt it in my chest more than I heard it with my ears. It sounded like a massive, impossibly heavy truck idling, just miles away. But we were miles from any road. I sat up. The thrumming lasted for maybe 10 seconds, and then it just faded away. I got out of bed and walked into the main control room. The computers were all humming along just like normal. I looked at the live seismograph feeds. Nothing. Not a single spike. Whatever that sound was, the ground hadn't registered it. How was that possible? It felt like it came from the earth itself. I looked out the thick, reinforced window. It was pitch black outside. The moon was just a sliver and the woods were a wall of darkness. I felt this chill run down my spine. It was the first time in my 6 months working there that I actually felt, scared. I went back to bed and just told myself I was imagining it. Just the wind, the building settling, just stupid crap like that. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I told Ben about it. Heard a weird humming noise last night, I said, trying to sound casual. Probably the generator cycling, he said, not even looking up from his newspaper. It didn't sound like the generator. It sounded deeper. He finally put the paper down and looked at me. Jake, you're in a metal box on top of a rock. This place makes noises. You're just getting spooked. You need to get out of your head. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But my gut feeling was screaming at me. Something was wrong. That day, 2 more sensors went offline, sensor 07 and sensor 0AC, both on opposite sides of our position, and both went down the exact same way as sensor 04. A single nonsensical spike of impossible force, and then flatline, dead. Now Ben was worried. I could see it. He tried to hide it, but his face got tight and he kept rubbing his beard. That's not a glitch, I said, staring at the dead feeds. No, he said, his voice low. That's not a glitch. What is it? I don't know, but I don't like it. 3 sensors in 2 days? That's not right. He went over to the shortwave radio and started tuning the dials, trying to reach the main office. All we got was static, a thick, heavy static that was unusual for this time of day. Atmospheric interference, he muttered. Partly a solar flare. But he didn't look convinced. We spent the rest of the day in a weird, tense silence. Every little sound made me jump. The wind whistling, a branch scraping the roof. It all felt threatening. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming. I kept looking out the window, half expecting to see someone standing at the edge of the tree line. But there was never anything there, just trees. That night, the thrumming came back. It woke me from a light, restless sleep. It was 3:15 a.m. I knew because I was staring right at my watch. This time it was louder. THRRRUMMM. It was a rhythm, like a giant slow heartbeat, and it was coming from right underneath us. The concrete floor of the station was vibrating. A cup of water on my nightstand rippled. I scrambled out of bed. In the control room, Ben was already at the computers, his eyes wide. What the hell is that? I yelled over the noise. Look, he shouted, pointing at the screens. Every single seismograph was going insane. But it wasn't an earthquake. The needles weren't jumping and spiking. They were vibrating. A perfect low-frequency wave that was so steady, so artificial, it looked like a test pattern. That's not natural, I said. My heart was pounding in my chest. No, Ben said, it's not. The thrumming went on for a solid minute, getting louder and louder until it felt like the whole building was going to shake apart. I could feel it in my teeth. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The silence that fell afterward was terrifying. It was so total, so absolute, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Ben and I just stared at each other. I'm calling this in, he said, his voice shaking. He grabbed the satellite phone, our emergency backup. He dialed the number for the main office. I watched him listen, his face growing paler. Nothing, he whispered. It's dead. Just dead air. That's when the automated alert system, a system I had never once seen go off, flared to life. A red banner flashed across our screens. Geological stress event imminent. Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. And then a new line of text appeared, something that wasn't in any manual I'd ever read. Warning, Zone 4 compromised. Subsurface resonance detected. Zone 4? I asked, my voice cracking. Ben, what's Zone 4? He pointed at a map on the wall. A red circle was drawn around our entire section of the forest. We are, he said. We're Zone 4. Before I could even process that, the shortwave radio in the corner, which had been nothing but static for 24 hours, crackled to life. It wasn't a clear signal, it was a mess of noise and screaming. But through it, we heard a voice, a man, shouting, frantic. God help us, it's not the rock, it's in the rock, repeats. God, it's singing. No time, the mountains are, they're... The signal cut out, replaced by a high-pitched squeal that made us both cover our ears. Ben slammed his fist on the console, shutting it off. We stood there in the humming silence of the room, the red evacuate warning still flashing on the screens. Pack a go bag, Ben said. His voice was all business now. The old, grizzled veteran was back. Just the essentials. Water, food, emergency beacon batteries. We're taking the truck. We're leaving. Now. I didn't argue. I ran to the supply closet and started grabbing everything I could. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely zip the bag. The thrumming started again. This time, it didn't stop. It was just there, a constant, low vibration that made the whole world feel wrong. Got your bag? Ben yelled. Yeah, let's go. He grabbed the station's emergency shotgun from the weapons locker, stuffing a box of shells into his pocket. He ran to the main door, a heavy steel fire door, and undid the deadbolts. He pulled it open, and we stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness. It was cold. So cold. And the thrumming was loud out here. It was coming from the ground, from the trees, from the air itself. It felt like we were standing on the inside of a giant drum. Our truck was parked about 30 feet away, just at the edge of the small gravel clearing. Move, Ben shouted. We started running, and then all the lights went out. The station behind us went dark. The few security lights we had on the perimeter are dead. The thrumming in the ground intensified, and I stumbled as the gravel under my feet literally shifted. The power's out, I yelled. Doesn't matter, just get to the truck. Ben was 5 steps ahead of me. He got to the driver's side door and fumbled for his keys. I was almost to the passenger side when I saw something. Or, I didn't see something. The woods, the trees at the edge of the clearing. They were wrong. Ben, I said, stopping. Ben, look. What? Get in the damn truck, Jake. The trees. In the faint, gray light of the coming dawn, I could see them. They were moving, but there was no wind, not a breeze. They were swaying, bending, like they were in a hurricane. But it was just the trees at the edge of our clearing, and then I saw it. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a bear. It was a shadow. A huge, impossibly tall shadow detaching itself from the tree line. It was like a piece of the night just stood up. It was easily 30 feet tall, thin, and it just unfolded. I can't describe it. It didn't have a shape. It was just a void. Ben, I screamed. He finally looked up from his keys. He saw it. He just froze. He didn't even raise the shotgun. He just stood there, his mouth open. What in God's name? He whispered. The thrumming sound suddenly focused. It wasn't coming from the ground anymore. It was coming from that, the shadow. It made a sound that I will hear in my nightmares until the day I die. It was the sound of a mountain cracking open mixed with a billion whispers. The shadow moved. It didn't run. It just flowed across the clearing toward us. It was so fast. Ben, run! I shrieked. I didn't wait for him. I just turned and ran. I didn't run for the truck. I ran for the woods on the opposite side of the clearing. I heard Ben fire the shotgun, a deafening boom that echoed off the ridges. Then I heard him scream. It wasn't a long scream. It was short. It just cut off. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just plunged into the dark forest, crashing through branches, falling and getting back up. My go bag thumped against my back. I ran until my lungs were on fire. I ran until I couldn't feel my legs. The thrumming was everywhere. The whispers were in my head. The ground was shaking, not like an earthquake, but like it was breathing. I finally fell into a ravine, sliding down a muddy slope and hidden under a rocky overhang. I curled up into a ball, shaking, crying, and just waited. I stayed hidden under that rock for hours. I must have passed out from fear or exhaustion, I don't know. When I woke up, it was daylight, bright, cold autumn daylight, and it was quiet. The thrumming was gone. The whispers were gone. There was just silence, the kind of silence that feels wrong. No birds, no insects, nothing. My whole body ached. I was covered in mud and scratches. My first thought was Ben. I had to go back. I had to see if he made it. It took me maybe 20 minutes to climb back up the ravine and creep back toward the station. I moved slow, tree to tree, my heart in my throat. Every snap of a twig made me jump. I got to the edge of the clearing. I wish I hadn't. The station was gone. Not like collapsed. It was gone. The concrete building, the radio tower, everything.
Release it into things. What? Were Ridicle's pocket? I strutted. Or a picture.
Where it had been, there was just the hole. A perfect circular crater, maybe 100 feet across. It looked like a giant quarry. There was no debris, no rubble, no computers, no Ben. Just raw, black earth. And the truck. Our truck was still there, where we left it. But it was flattened. It was crushed down to a foot high like a giant had just stepped on it. I stood there, my mind just breaking. I couldn't understand what I was seeing. It was impossible. I looked at the ground near the truck. Ben's shotgun was there. It was bent in half, the barrel twisted like it was made of clay. And next to it, his flashlight. It was just sitting there on the gravel, and it was still on, a pale, weak beam of light in the morning sun. I don't know why, but that's what broke me. The flashlight. I backed away, slow at first, and then I turned and I ran. I ran like I did before, but this time I had a direction. I had a GPS in my go bag. I was just going to go south, until I hit the parkway, the Blue Ridge Parkway. It was maybe 10, 12 miles. I had to get out of these woods. That hike, it was the longest day of my life. The whole forest was wrong. The silence was the worst part. I walked for hours and never heard a single bird. And the trees, whole swaths of forest were just knocked over. Not snapped. Not broken, but pushed over, all the roots torn out of the ground, all laying in the same direction, like a shockwave had passed through. I kept my GPS in my hand and just walked. I didn't stop to rest. I didn't stop to drink. I just moved. I had this horrible, creeping gut feeling that I was being watched. I kept looking over my shoulder. I kept seeing things in the corner of my eye, just shapes, dark shapes moving between the trees way in the distance. Was it the same thing I saw at the station? Or were there more of them? I'd stop, I'd whip my head around. Nothing, just the silent, broken woods. I told myself I was just paranoid, just in shock, but then I'd hear it, a stick cracking just 30 or 40 feet behind me. I'd freeze, listen, nothing. I'd walk for another 5 minutes. Crack, it was following me. Something was definitely following me. I started to run, or at least jog. I was too tired to sprint. I was just crashing through the undergrowth, making a ton of noise, and I could hear it behind me. It wasn't trying to be quiet anymore, it was running too. But it didn't sound like a person. It sounded too heavy. It sounded like multiple things. I didn't see it. I never saw it. I just heard it crashing through the woods behind me, keeping pace. I was sobbing, just openly crying while I ran. I was so scared. I knew I was going to die out here. Then I heard the thrumming again. It was faint, way in the distance. Coming from the north, back where the station was. As soon as that sound started, the footsteps behind me stopped, just stopped. It was like they'd been called back. I didn't stop running. I kept going. I didn't care. I just needed to get to the road. After another hour, the trees started to thin. I could see the sky. I burst out of the woods and fell onto asphalt. The Blue Ridge Parkway. I'd never been so happy to see a road in my entire life. I just laid on the pavement, gasping for air. After a few minutes, I stood up. I looked around, and my heart just dropped. The road, it was empty. Not a single car. Which was weird for an October afternoon. This was peak leaf peeper season. The parkway should have been full of tourists, but there was no one, and the road was cracked. Huge fissures ran across the asphalt. In some places, the guardrail was just gone, twisted and tossed down the mountainside. Abandoned cars were everywhere. I saw a minivan just stopped in the middle of the lane. All its doors were wide open. A child's stuffed animal was lying on the road next to it. I saw a motorcycle on its side, the engine still ticking, but the rider was gone. It was an evacuation. But it wasn't orderly. It was a panic. I looked north, up the parkway, in the direction of the station. The sky was dark. A huge, churning plume of black dust was rising from the ridges. It looked like a volcano was erupting. I looked south. The sky was clear. I started walking south. I walked for miles, past car after car, all empty, all just left. Some had crashed into each other, some had just stopped. It was so quiet. Just the wind and the sound of my own footsteps on the broken road. I kept thinking about the title of this thing. Warning. Millions will have no time to escape North Carolina mountains. That's what I was looking at, the no time part. These people, they just ran. They got out of their cars and ran into the woods. Why? What did they see? I kept walking, and as the sun started to set, I finally saw it, an overlook, a big scenic overlook facing east. You could see the whole valley from there. You should have been able to see Asheville. I walked to the stone wall at the edge of the overlook. My legs were shaking. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I looked down into the valley. Asheville was gone. It was just dark. The whole valley was dark. No lights, nothing. It was filled with that same black dust cloud I'd seen to the north. It was just settled over the whole area, a blanket of blackness. I stood there, watching the last bit of sun disappear, and as the darkness became total, I saw them. Lights, down in the valley, in the blackness. But they weren't city lights, they weren't house lights, they were flickering, orange and red lights. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, moving around like torches. No, not torches. They were, I don't know, they were just moving, like a swarm of angry fireflies. And then the thrumming started again. It wasn't distant this time. It was coming from right below me. from the valley. The whole mountain was shaking. The stone wall I was leaning on vibrated. I backed away. I backed away and I ran. I ran all night. I just ran south along the broken parkway. I don't know when the military convoy found me. It must have been near dawn. I just remember headlights. I remember collapsing on the road. I woke up in the back of a Humvee. A soldier in full gear was staring at me. Where? What? I muttered. Just stay calm, son. We're taking you to a safe zone. What happened? I asked. Asheville, the station, Ben. He just shook his head. He wouldn't look me in the eye. Unprecedented seismic event, he said, like he was reading from a script. That's all the info we have right now. That wasn't an earthquake, I said. My voice was hoarse. I saw things. I heard. He just stared at me. His expression was cold. You're in shock, son, he said. Just get some rest. And that was it. I've been in this safe zone for 2 years now. It's a refugee camp in South Carolina. There are thousands of us. People who were rescued, people who escaped. The official story is still the same, a 9.5 earthquake, the Appalachian fracture. They say the mountains just collapsed. They say millions died. They've quarantined the entire Blue Ridge. No one goes in, no one comes out. They say the air is toxic from all the dust. But I know what I saw, and I know what I hear. I talk to other survivors here. We whisper late at night. We all have the same stories. Stories of a low, thrumming sound. Stories of shadows in the woods, shadows as tall as the trees. Stories of the ground moving like it was alive. They don't let us have access to the internet, not really. But sometimes you find a way. I looked up the old legends of the area, the Cherokee. They had stories about these mountains. Stories about the things that sleep beneath them. Beings of shadow and sound who were here long before any people. They said that one day, the great iron binders that hold them down would break, and the mountains would sing again. I still have nightmares. Every single night, I dream about Ben's flashlight sitting on the gravel. I dream about the shadow unfolding from the trees. But mostly I dream about the thrumming. Sometimes, when the camp is quiet, in the middle of the night, I think I can still hear it. It's faint, it's distant, but it's there. And I don't think it's done. I don't think it's done at all.